Well, hello there. I don't normally do this nighttime deep meditation with the lights on. I normally do this in the dark, and I keep it all inside where it heals me deeply from my childhood wounds. So when I'm in this deep meditative state, I have already been toning and chanting for a few minutes before I turned on the camera. But as I mentioned, I don't normally do it with my eyes open. So since it's important for some people to see your eyes, then I'll do this with my eyes open, and we'll see where it takes us. So one of the things that Alexus mentioned in episode 1, and I guess I should say welcome to episode 2 of Ponderings from the Pyramid. And tonight we're going to take a deep dive into a topic that most people don't want to touch, but I've told you this is going to be complete authenticity, so we're going to go there. We're going to talk about religious abuse. There'll be a lot of you that'll click off about now, but let me start at the beginning of the disclaimer of sorts that I got from my life coach / shaman, Ricky Goodall. And that is, do not believe anything I tell you. Don't believe anything I say. Don't believe any of my stories. Don't believe anything that doesn't resonate for you. If I say anything that causes your hackles to come up, then that might be something you might want to look at, because otherwise it's just me telling my story. Why should that bother you? Normally that would bother you because there's something there for you to learn. But I'm not here to convince anybody of anything other than just to say, don't believe anything that I say is ultimate truth. It's my truth. It's my story. But you're not me. We haven't had the same upbringing. We haven't had the same life. So we're going to have different experiences and different things are going to resonate. So anyway, that's the disclaimer. So here we go. Religious abuse. Okay, first of all, let's define what Alexus considers to be religious abuse. And that is being brainwashed is a very strong word, but yet it starts very, very young. It literally starts as soon as shortly after you're born. Of course, most people don't remember being baptized when they're weeks old or maybe a month. But anyway, it starts from before you're verbal, that this is where you come to learn about God and what you should and shouldn't do and all of that sort of stuff. But by the time you're old enough to comprehend some of the stories, and some of the stories don't have happy endings, needless to say, that you begin to form an opinion. You begin to form an opinion about the pattern of the stories. And the stories are always about shame. Not always, but often about shame, because the whole thing is built on the foundation of original sin. And I mentioned that in the first video, that original sin to me is just complete and total nonsense. Never made sense to me when I was a kid. Never has. Not even when I was in my deepest, darkest, lowest self-esteem did I ever buy that stuff. So anyway, if you throw original sin out the door, then what's to keep you coming back to the church? Because all they're going to do is tell you what a terrible person you are, what a sinner you are. I won't even start about the origin of the word sin. It's an archery term, means miss the mark. That doesn't sound like something you should burn in hell for all eternity for, and yet the church would cause you to believe that because you can't help but sin, you're going to sin all the time, and And the only way out is through confessing to Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. The magic words. The magic words. I tried those magic words so many times. Like I said, we went to church every Sunday. No exception unless the roads were so muddy from the rain you just physically couldn't get there. Otherwise, every Sunday morning it was go to church. I hated it. Every single time, hated it. Anyway, we used to go to church every Sunday no matter what, and I hated it because being told that I'm a sinner bound for hell, can't do anything but say the magic words, and I said the magic words and nothing changed. What? Wait. You said that if I go up there and I confess my sins and I say, please, Jesus, I want you to come into my life as my Lord and Savior, something should happen, yes? But for me, it didn't. Nothing. Nothing happened. So I figured, all right, guess I'm too far gone. Something. Because my friends would tell me what it felt like to them and how they were happy and light, and all of a sudden a burden had been taken off of their shoulders, and it's like, what kind of burden do you have? You're like 7 years old, 8 years old, whatever. But it was obvious that something had changed for them, or they were very, very good actors. I guess that's up to an individual case by case. But for me, nothing changed other than it made me feel even worse, because now I've said the magic words and nothing changed. So, vacation Bible school in the summer, every summer for, I don't remember if it was a week or 2 weeks. Kind of think it was 2, but it doesn't matter. Felt like a year and a half. I hated it. Are you getting a repeating theme here? Because I already felt bad about myself because of the rigid discipline of my father. And when you're a kid, you take that, you absorb that, you take that on. The abuse has to be because you actually did something wrong, even though you don't know what you did. But yet that self-esteem just keeps going lower and lower and lower. And then you go to church, and then they tell you you're born in sin, you're going to die in sin, and you got to say the magic words. And I said the magic words, and nothing happened. So where am I going to go? What am I going to do? So I just kept doing it, just because, try again. And, they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So tried again and again. When I was a kid in Kansas growing up, there was these thing called revivals where they'd come through with a preacher and a tent, and they would give this evangelical, come join the church, come accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, and all that. And those revivals used to be something that we would occasionally go to, not often, but occasionally. And I even tried it there. Same thing, nothing. Said the magic words, went up, nothing. And my self-esteem just got lower and lower because I kept trying. So, pretty much gave up on religion during my college years and thereafter, other than got married, had 2 children, wonderful, loving children. But we went to church because that's what was expected. I was a dentist, seen as the upper tier of society, so to speak. Certainly not wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, but expected to have a certain appearance. A wife and 2 kids, fancy car, live in a nice house in the suburbs, all of that. Went to church every Sunday. Hated it. Loved being with my family because it was important to them, but hated going there. Hated it. But I did it for the family. And then I stumbled across a book, actually referred by a friend at the time, a book by a guy named John Bradshaw called On the Family. So I got the book, read the book. It was amazing. I'd never ever considered that my upbringing was abnormal. Just thought that happened for everybody. But it helped me understand something called a dysfunctional family. And now, of course, everybody knows that is the norm. Some are just more dysfunctional than others, but every family has their secrets. And so anyway, once I kind of got that in my head, then it all of a sudden became, well, maybe it's not about me. And of course it's not, never is, but that's what I began to learn. And as I began to learn those things, then I began to feel better about myself, went to some workshops and did some serious shadow work. Didn't call it that at the time, didn't know what that was at the time, but it was a shadow work from childhood wounds from both mother and father, and made a huge difference. Kind of helped me wake up. But it still, church just still didn't fit. So then this thing came along where I discovered my feminine self. Discovered that not only did the church not fit, this body doesn't fit. That's not the church. That's not who I was. I was never that. I tried to be that and it didn't work. Tried living my life as a man and miserable in many ways. From all outside appearances, I had the world by the tail. But inside, it wasn't empty, it was angry. Angry because I'd done everything that I was told to do. And I said the magic words and nothing helped, nothing helped, nothing helped. So I started looking elsewhere for other churches that weren't based on original sin, and there are some out there. And I found the Church of Religious Science, went there for many years, became a licensed religious science practitioner, which is sort of like the lay version of a minister, a lay minister maybe. You pray for people and listen to their lives and spread word and happiness and healing and all of the things. But so that church felt better. That church felt better, but there was no original sin. But yet I still couldn't figure out this thing about Jesus as your Lord and Savior, even though that church isn't based on original sin, so there's no need to have a Savior, but I just didn't feel like I had a relationship with this God energy called Jesus. Never felt it. Never felt it. And my esteem just kept going down and down. Around that, I felt better as a person because I had discovered my feminine side and was beginning to express that, and that was a wonderful, wonderful time. But the religious piece was still MIA, missing in action. So spent the next few years in transition. The next couple of years, wasn't a few. I guess it was 1 or 2. I don't remember the exact number. And having a wonderful time expressing my feminine self and contemplating transition and knowing that if I decided to transition, my marriage was going to be over, and we'd already had that conversation. So, and then came the diagnosis of stage 3 Hodgkin's disease. Stage 3 Hodgkin's disease. You have cancer. Words that I would never wish upon my worst enemy. The words, you have cancer. Wow. Talk about having to take a deep breath. So once we figured out what the course of treatment was going to look like to try to put the genie back in the bottle, spent a lot of time in meditation, prayer, connection with source, whatever it was out there, because nothing really worked for me before as far as feeling the a knowing connection of somebody that they called Jesus, even though it never happened for me. But I did get a message from the cancer, and the message is very clear. They said, "We did not come to kill you. We came to wake you up." Wake me up for what? Wake you up to live an authentic life as a woman. No, 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 no. That does not fit. I checked my day timer. I checked my 1 year, 1 week, 1 year, 1 month, 5 year, 10-year planner. That's not in any of those places. That doesn't work for me. I said, well, okay. You don't have to. You can die of cancer. That's pretty easy. A lot of people take that out. Okay. So needless to say, there was a lot of deep pondering going on during those early months of treatment. And then it became quite apparent that if I was to have any chance of surviving this, which ultimately turned out to be 6 months, twice a week, 12 treatments of chemotherapy, followed by a month of radiation 5 days a week. That's a rough one. But on the other side, I came out with a new resolve. I came out a new person. I came out as Alexus. Had another name at the very beginning. I used Alexandra for a little while, but that just wasn't right. And then I got out a baby book and started looking through an Alexus, spelled with a U at the end, Alexus. Yeah, I like that a lot. But I didn't have a last name. Didn't know if I needed a last name, but I wanted to have a last name to protect my middle school daughter, so that if I was ever out and I wasn't yet comfortable with anybody making the connection with me out as a woman, getting back and somehow negatively impacting my daughter. So changed my last name too, but didn't know what that would be. But I was driving in traffic one night or one afternoon, came over a hill, and it just, with the voice was right back here, clear as day. Sheppard, Sheppard. Okay, so that's how I got my last name. So anyway, I digress a little. Because we're talking about how did we get to the place of knowing who I am and starting my transition. And that's where the next episode will begin. So we'll stop this one right now. And I'll drum just a little bit and chant just a little bit. Oh, and I'm going to turn off this microphone so that it doesn't pick up the drumming, because it does it really, really bad.